some feelings stay silent, until now. The rain tapped gently against the windows of the Boston apartment as I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. At 21, my life had taken an unexpected turn when my mother accepted a job overseas, leading me to move in with my cousin Martine. 3 months had passed since then, but today felt different somehow. I ran my fingers through my dark hair, trying to calm the strange anxiety building in my chest. The sound of the front door opening pulled me from my thoughts. "I'm home." Martine's voice echoed through the apartment, carrying its usual warmth and confidence. From the first day, I had admired my cousin. Martine was everything I wasn't: self-assured, charismatic, effortlessly commanding any room he entered. At 27, Martine had already established himself as one of Boston's promising real estate agents, with a network of connections that seemed to expand daily. Our routine had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings began with Martine preparing protein shakes while I brewed coffee, both watching the city wake up through the large windows of the kitchen. During the day, I worked at a sports equipment store downtown while Martine pursued property showings and client meetings. Evenings often found us sharing takeout, playing video games, or simply talking on the balcony as the city lights began to twinkle below. "How was your day?" Martine asked, loosening his tie as he walked into the kitchen where I was preparing pasta. "The usual. Helped a couple find tennis rackets for their kids," I replied, keeping my eyes on the boiling water. "You?" "Closed the Henderson deal finally. 6 figures, man." Martine's smile was broad as he reached for a beer from the refrigerator. "We should celebrate this weekend." I nodded, stirring the pasta with more concentration than necessary. Everything changed 3 days ago, when I'd come home early and found Martine stepping out of the shower, water droplets still clinging to his toned torso, a towel wrapped loosely around his waist. For a moment, I had found myself unable to move, transfixed by the sight. The strange flutter in my stomach had caught me completely off guard. "Hey, you okay?" Martine's voice brought me back to the present. "You've been quiet lately." "Just tired," I lied, draining the pasta into a colander. The rising steam provided a convenient excuse for my flushed face. Later that evening, as we sat watching a basketball game, Martine turned to me. "I need your help with something tomorrow. I've got that important client, the one looking at the penthouse on Beacon Street. Which shirt looks better?" He held up 2 options, a crisp blue button-down and a subtly patterned gray one. "The blue brings out your eyes," I said before I could stop myself. I immediately felt heat rising to my cheeks. "I mean, it looks more professional." Martine studied me for a moment, his green eyes thoughtful. "You look different lately," he commented. "Something change with your hair?" "No," I said quickly, focusing intently on the TV screen. "Nothing's changed." But something had changed, and I was terrified by what it might mean. As our fingers brushed when Martine took the blue shirt from me, an electric current seemed to race up my arm. That night, lying in bed, I replayed every moment since moving in with my cousin, searching for signs I might have missed. The workouts together at the gym, Martine's hands adjusting my posture during exercises, the shared laughter during movie nights, the glances that sometimes lasted a little too long. My phone buzzed with a text from Martine. "Don't wait up. Client wants to extend dinner." Something about the message left me feeling unsettled. Could it be jealousy? No, that was ridiculous. This was my cousin, my friend. But as hard as I tried to push these thoughts away, they only grew stronger, consuming me from the inside out. The following weeks became a delicate dance for me, navigating the increasingly confusing feelings that surfaced whenever Martine was near. Our Sunday morning ritual of preparing breakfast together, once simply comfortable companionship, now felt charged with unspoken tension. "You need to learn how to cook properly," Martine teased one morning, coming up behind me to adjust the heat on the stove. His chest brushed lightly against my back, and I had to concentrate fiercely to keep my hands steady as I scrambled the eggs. "I'm doing just fine," I replied, my voice slightly strained as I stepped aside, creating distance between us. I've survived on my own cooking for years. Martine raised an eyebrow. Survived is the key word there. There's a difference between surviving and enjoying. Our gym sessions became more frequent, with Martine taking on the role of instructor. "Let me show you," he would say, his firm hands guiding my movements during exercises. Each touch, though innocent in intent, sent waves of electricity through my body, making concentration nearly impossible. "Your form is getting better," Martine noted after spotting me on the bench press. "You're a quick learner." I mumbled thanks, avoiding my cousin's gaze. The truth was, I had begun looking forward to these moments, even while dreading the confusing emotions they stirred within me. Evenings on the sofa watching series acquired a new dimension. Sometimes we sat so close that I could feel the warmth radiating from Martine's body. On one such night, Martine fell asleep with his head on my shoulder. I remained perfectly still, breathing in my cousin's scent, torn between the desire to stay that way forever and the fear of ruining our friendship. Martine began including me more in his social life, introducing me to friends, taking me to bars after work. "You need to get out more, cousin," he would say, draping an arm around my shoulders. It was both painful and comforting, this casual intimacy that now seemed to carry two completely different meanings for each of us. Each day, hiding my feelings became more difficult. I found myself studying Martine when he wasn't looking, the way his forehead creased when concentrating on work emails, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed, the graceful movement of his hands when explaining something passionately. I started creating excuses to avoid our training sessions together. The guidance of Martine's hands had become unbearable. When we watched movies, I maintained a safe distance. But worst of all were the nights when I heard Martine coming home late, imagining who he might be with. One evening, I passed by Martine's bedroom and overheard him speaking softly on the phone, his voice carrying an intimate tone I hadn't heard before. My stomach knotted at the possibility of Martine being involved with someone. "We need to talk about this in person," Martine was saying. "It's too complicated over the phone." I know. I care about you too." I retreated to my room, a mixture of jealousy and shame washing over me. I had no right to feel this way. Martine was free to have relationships, to love whomever he wanted. The fact that it bothered me so deeply was my problem alone. Martine began to question me about my distant behavior. Each question felt like a sharp knife. "You're different, Lucas. Has something happened?" he asked one evening, his green eyes filled with genuine concern. If only he knew that he was the reason for my distress. Each day became a test of self-control, with me constructing walls between us even as my feelings grew stronger. The apartment that had once felt like a sanctuary now seemed too small, charged with unspoken tension and forbidden desires. "I'm fine," I insisted when Martine pressed me again. "Just stressed about work." But the lie felt hollow, even to my own ears. And from the look in Martine's eyes, my cousin didn't believe me either. Something would have to give, and soon. I just didn't know what it would be, or how much it would cost us both when it finally did. On a rainy Friday evening, I returned early from work, my shoulders hunched against the downpour. I entered the apartment, shaking water from my jacket, when I noticed the balcony door ajar despite the weather. Through the rain-streaked glass, I could make out Martine's silhouette. I stepped cautiously onto the balcony, sheltered from the worst of the rain by the overhang. Martine sat on one of the iron chairs, a half-empty bottle of whiskey beside him. His eyes were red-rimmed, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something I had never seen before: vulnerability. "Martine, what's wrong?" I asked, taking the seat across from him. "I broke up with Nicolas," Martine murmured, offering me a glass. I froze, the name unfamiliar. "Nicolas?" "My boyfriend." "Ex-boyfriend," Martine clarified, avoiding eye contact. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as I processed the information. Martine was gay? How had I never realized? A cascade of thoughts flooded my mind as I sat beside my cousin, accepting the offered drink. The amber liquid burned my throat, but I welcomed the sensation. It grounded me in this moment that felt increasingly surreal. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "I was afraid of your reaction." Everyone's reaction. Martine finally met my eyes. "You're the closest person I have, Lucas. I couldn't bear to lose you." The rain fell harder now, and the sound of droplets against the glass balcony enclosure created an intimate bubble around us. Martine continued talking about Nicolas, about how they met, about his fear of revealing his sexuality to his family. Each word echoed my own internal fears and conflicts. "You must think I'm a coward," Martine said, running his hand through his rain-dampened hair. I didn't respond immediately, gathering courage from the whiskey burning in my veins. "Actually, I understand more than you might think." Our gazes locked, and for the first time, I allowed Martine to see everything I'd been hiding. Recognition dawned in Martine's eyes, followed by something deeper, more intense. "Lucas," he whispered, leaning forward slowly. Time seemed to freeze. I could feel Martine's warm breath against my face, smell the familiar scent of his cologne mingled with whiskey. My heart pounded so forcefully I was certain Martine could hear it. "I shouldn't," Martine murmured, but his hand was already on my face, his thumb caressing my cheek. "Why not?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because you're my cousin. Because this could ruin everything." Years of repressed desire, weeks of silent torture, everything exploded in that moment. I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips against Martine's. For a second, Martine froze, and I thought I had made the biggest mistake of my life. Then Martine's hands circled the nape of my neck, and he kissed me back with an intensity that left me breathless. When we separated, the rain had diminished to a light drizzle. Martine rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed, breathing heavily. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "I know," I responded, feeling the weight of those words. We remained embraced on the balcony as night fell over Boston, not knowing what tomorrow would bring, how to deal with our family, with society. But in that moment, for the first time in a long while, I felt completely at peace with who I was. That kiss on the balcony was just the beginning. With our defenses lowered by the whiskey and rain, we went inside the apartment without taking our eyes off each other. Martine closed the door behind us, and the click seemed to seal our fate. In the darkness, our heavy breathing was the only sound besides the rain still tapping against the windows. Martine's hands found my waist, pulling me closer. The heat of his body against mine was intoxicating. His lips traced my neck, sending shivers down my spine. "Are you sure?" Martine whispered against my skin, his hands already exploring under my shirt. In response, I tangled my fingers in Martine's hair and pulled him into another kiss. This time more urgent, more hungry. Years of repressed desire transformed into eager touches, into irregular sighs. Martine guided me to his bedroom with awkward steps, stumbling against furniture along the way. The dim light filtering through the window created shadows on Martine's face, highlighting his strong features. He paused at the foot of the bed, looking at me with an intensity that made my heart race. His skilled hands slowly unbuttoned my shirt, his fingers tracing each inch of exposed skin. I returned the gesture, marveling at the sensation of Martine's muscles under my hands, something I'd imagined countless times but never thought I would experience. "You're beautiful," Martine murmured, gently pushing me onto the bed. The mattress yielded under our combined weight. "Are you having regrets?" I asked the next morning, my heart racing with fear as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating Martine's thoughtful expression. The previous night had changed everything between us. What had been unleashed in the darkness now faced the harsh reality of daylight. Martine's arm was still wrapped around my waist, our bodies warm against each other as the city woke outside. "Never about this," Martine replied, tracing my face with his fingers, a soft smile playing on his lips. But we have a lot to talk about. We sat up in bed, backs against the headboard, the morning light making everything more real, more intense. We could no longer hide behind the darkness of night or the haze of alcohol. How do we handle this? I asked, our familial connection now carrying new meaning. No one will understand. It won't be easy, Martine answered, intertwining his fingers with mine. Our family won't understand. Not just because we're both men, but because we're cousins. The reality of our kinship weighed heavily on us. Years of family lunches, Christmases, birthdays, everything now seemed tinged with this new dimension of our relationship. Maybe we should move, Martine suggested cautiously. Start fresh somewhere people don't know us. The idea was both tempting and terrifying. A new beginning, away from judging eyes and family expectations. But it also meant leaving behind everything familiar. What about our jobs, our friends? I questioned, though I knew I would give up everything for Martine. We can build a new life together, Martine answered, pulling me closer. Between kisses and caresses, we spent the rest of the morning planning our future. San Francisco emerged as a possibility. A more open city, far enough from Boston to give us the anonymity we needed. We would need to tell someone eventually, we agreed. Your sister, I suggested. Elena has always been more understanding. Fear flickered in Martine's eyes, the same fear I felt of rejection, of losing our family, of hurting those we loved. No matter what happens, Martine said, embracing me from behind while I washed the breakfast dishes. You're my family now, my choice. His words touched something deep within me. Turning in Martine's arms, I kissed him softly, savoring the now familiar quality of his lips that had, in just one night, become my home. We'll figure this out, Martine continued. We need to protect what we have. I nodded, knowing our journey was just beginning. The road ahead would be difficult, full of obstacles and sacrifices, but looking into Martine's eyes, seeing all the love and determination there, I knew it was worth it. We had found something rare and precious, a love that transcended conventions and expectations, and we would do anything to preserve it. 3 months passed since that rainy night that changed our lives. Martine and I kept our relationship secret, living a double life that was becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. During the day, we were cousins and roommates in the eyes of the world. At night, we allowed ourselves to be lovers, discovering new aspects of each other with each moment we shared. The move to San Francisco was planned for the end of the month. Martine secured a transfer at his company, and I obtained a position at a promising architecture firm. Everything seemed to be falling perfectly into place until Martine's sister, Elena, appeared at our apartment unannounced one Sunday afternoon. We need to talk, she said with a serious face as she sat in our living room. About you two. The silence that followed was deafening. Martine squeezed my hand discreetly, his sweaty palm betraying his nervousness. How did you know? Was all I could ask. I'm your sister, Martine, she answered, her eyes softening. I know you better than our conservative family. You need to leave, she said finally. Not because what you feel is wrong, but because you deserve to live this love freely. Her words catalyzed our plans in the days that followed. We accelerated our moving preparations, with Elena helping with the arrangements, serving as our only confidant and support. On the night before our departure, we had one last family dinner. It was a bittersweet evening filled with laughter and shared stories as we carried the weight of our secret. I observed my aunt and uncle, Martine's parents, joking and making plans for the future, unaware they were about to lose their son to a life they could never understand. Are you ready? Martine asked when we returned home, our last night in the apartment that had witnessed our transformation from cousins to lovers. I'm scared, I answered honestly. But I'm ready to start our life together. Martine kissed me softly, his hands gently framing my face. "We should leave letters," he suggested. "Explain as much as we can without revealing everything. They deserve some kind of explanation." We spent the night writing and rewriting our letters, carefully choosing each word that explained our need for change, for finding our own happiness, about how love sometimes leads us down unexpected paths. In the morning, with our suitcases loaded in the car and the letters left on the kitchen table, we took one last look at the apartment that had been our home. "It's not goodbye," Martine said, noticing my hesitation. "It's see you later." Elena was waiting for us at the airport, being our only witness to this new phase. She hugged us tightly, promising to visit soon. "Be happy," she whispered tearfully, "and don't look back." As the plane took off, Boston diminishing below us, Martine held my hand. In his eyes I saw our entire future, a future that, though uncertain, would be ours to build together and free. 5 years had passed since we left Boston. San Francisco had become our sanctuary, our chance to start over. Here we were, simply Martine and Lucas, a couple like any other, building a life based on love and authenticity. Our family eventually discovered the truth. Some cut ties completely, others maintained a polite distance. Elena continued to be our bridge to the past, keeping us informed about everyone, even those who chose not to accept us. Today we lived in a small but cozy house in Castro Bay View. Martine had become the CTO of his company, and my architecture firm was growing more than I ever imagined. We had new friends, a community that accepted us without judgment, and most importantly, we had each other. On evenings when we sat on our porch watching the sunset, I remembered that rainy night in Boston that changed our lives. The fear we felt then seemed distant now, replaced by a quiet certainty that we had made the right decision. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked one evening, as the golden California light bathed our small garden. "Leaving everything behind?" Martine took a moment before answering, his fingers intertwined with mine. "I miss certain things. My parents' Sunday dinners, the Boston fall, the familiarity of the city where I grew up. But regret?" He shook his head. "Not for a second." Our journey hadn't been without challenges. The first year had been particularly difficult, establishing ourselves professionally in a new city while dealing with the emotional fallout of our decision. Some family members had discovered the truth accidentally when a mutual friend spotted us together in San Francisco. The resulting confrontations had been painful, with accusations and painful words that still echoed in my mind occasionally. But there had been unexpected moments of grace too. My mother had eventually come around, visiting us twice a year. One of Martine's cousins had reached out after his own son came out, seeking advice and building a new bridge to the family we'd left behind. "Remember Elena's wedding last summer?" I smiled at the memory. It had been our first time back in Boston, a tense reunion with family members who knew the truth but chose an uneasy peace for Elena's sake. "How could I forget?" Martine laughed. "My father could barely look at us, but at least he shook your hand." "Baby steps," I said, the phrase that had become our mantra over the years. Our professional lives had blossomed in unexpected ways. My understanding of space and comfort, influenced by our own search for belonging, had informed my architectural designs in ways that garnered attention in the industry. Martine's technology company had expanded, with his team developing applications that helped connect marginalized communities. "They're talking about opening an office in New York," Martine mentioned casually. "They want me to head it up." I looked at him in surprise. "Would you want to move?" "Only if you're with me," Martine replied simply. "We're a package deal now." The ease with which we discussed the possibility of another move showed how far we'd come from the terrified young men who had fled Boston 5 years ago. We had built a life strong enough to withstand change, to adapt and grow. That night, as we lay in bed, I reflected on our journey. For those reading this story who identify with our struggle, I wanted to say that there is hope. Love in all its forms deserves to be lived to the fullest. Yes, the road may be difficult. Yes, you might lose important people along the way. But the challenge of being who you are, of loving who you love, is worth every sacrifice. Martine and I had learned that family isn't just the one we're born into, but also the one we choose to build our story with. It's not about running away or hiding, but having the courage to seek happiness, even when it comes in unconventional forms. If you're struggling with your own truth, know that you're not alone. There's a whole world out there ready to receive you, people ready to love you just as you are. Don't let fear of judgment prevent you from living your truth, because in the end, regret doesn't come from the brave choices we make for love, but from the times we allow fear to stop us from being who we truly are. This is our story. What will yours be? Some stories don't end with the kiss. Subscribe to hear what happened next.